You're listening to a Roddenberry podcast.
Mission Log Prodigy, a Roddenberry Star Trek podcast. Episode 24, Temporal Mechanics 101.
Welcome into another episode of Mission Log Prodigy, a Roddenberry Star Trek podcast. I'm Marina Kravchuk.
And I am Charlene Schmidt. Just like our flagship Mission Log podcast, each week here on Mission Log Prodigy, we discuss each and every episode of this animated series, discover what makes each of them special, and see if there's any morals, meanings, or messages that we've learned.
This week, we take a crash course in Temporal Mechanics 101. Please remember that Mission Log Prodigy is in-depth review podcast, so if you've not seen this episode yet, you may want to put us on pause, watch the episode, and then come back and hear us talk all about it.
Mission Log Prodigy is produced for YouTube and as a regular podcast, so please be sure to engage the like and the share buttons and subscribe to us here on the Roddenberry Entertainment YouTube channel. And please make sure you listen to us on podcast.roddenberry.com or on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast, like ours. You can also follow Mission Log Prodigy on Twitter at ML_Prodigy, and that is where you can keep up with all of our latest news and updates.
Now, before we jump into the recap, let's remind everybody why our podcast is so unique. We want to hear from the cadets, the younger Prodigy fans out there who would like to share their thoughts on the show. We loved hearing your thoughts on Who Saves the Saviors, the previous episode, and hope you will join us again this week and onward. Once again, this is where we put the call for submissions for the next week's episode, Observer's Paradox. How do you do that? So glad you asked. Here's a quick refresher. Please send us a 1 or 2 minute voice message at missionlog-prodigy@roddenberry.com and tell us the following. What is your first name and age? Did you like the episode? What was your favorite part? And what did you learn? The deadline for Observer's Paradox is Saturday, July 27th. So please get your comments in before they can be featured at the end of our next show.
All right, and how about we kick things off for this show by answering the very questions we're asking of our cadets. So, Marina, did you like the episode?
I adored it. We get some great action, great exposition, so many great moments with pretty much all of the characters. All these little story threads that we started with, sure weaving quite a tapestry, and we're only on episode 4. So this is tremendous.
Yeah, the mysteries, they're deepening, like who is helping the kids on their mission? Where is Chakotay? Where did the kids, or the kids did get Gwyn back. So we know that that's sort of sorted for now, but even if we don't know why they need to all be together, that's a thing, because the mysterious entity says that, but we don't know exactly what that means. Nevertheless, that feels right. And so as much chaos is going on, things are coming together at the same time. It's a very interesting mix. Now, how about your favorite part?
Well, Temporal Mechanics 101 interlude. That certainly takes the cake. It's a wonderfully fun way to provide some very much needed scientific explanation. I mean, we're talking about some heavy duty concepts here.
Yes.
And speaking of science, I absolutely adored these little bits when Zero and Majel are actually sciencing together. It was so sweet.
Yeah.
And of course, I found it very lovely, I suppose. The fact that we see how different Iltharon is, this parental devotion that he's exhibiting, completely different, completely opposite to what we know about the Diviner from, pretty much in every way.
Oh, I cannot wait to talk about that more. Yeah. My favorite part also has to be Temporal Mechanics 101. Yeah. I mean, Dr. Erin had to have just been thrilled about doing this and seeing that it was going to become a thing, because this is what she does in real life. She does science education for the masses, and now it's canonized in Star Trek. She's not just the advisor, but she is the person giving the lessons. How cool is that? I'm so excited for her. We got to talk to her not that long ago in an interview, and oh my gosh, things that she probably wanted to say to us.
Yeah, it's always fun discussions. Like, is it actually her, Dr. Erin? Is it her, I don't know, some distant relative? It's a fun thing too. I mean, I believe she mentioned that her favorite thought is that it somehow she ends up actually in the future a la Gillian Taylor. So I'm like,
yes,
yeah, totally.
That's the theory. Yes, we're going to totally go with that. And how about lessons? What did you learn in this one?
Well, we have very nice, solid continuation of importance of sticking together and solving the problems together. That's very nice. And then, of course, also continuation of the fact that actions have consequences. It's very hard to find this balance between sort of, sometimes doing the right thing means taking risks, as Dal says. And it's sort of also Janeway's approach that sometimes to do the right thing, you have to punch through. But, the other side of it is following the rules, and it's never too late to abandon a bad idea, which is sort of like Majel/Jellicoe approach, I feel. So it's those two things I think we have very nice follow through in this episode.
Oh, I like that. Yeah. There's a lot of good lessons in this episode.
Yeah.
I think one of the more obvious ones is from Dr. Erin herself about time. Don't screw up time if you don't have to, kids. Because, we're going to find out what happens when you do. And I have many more things, but let's save those for the discussion because that's really the meat of the episode. So we'll save it for there.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Char, for your answers. And now it's time for the recap of this episode.
All right. So here we go with Temporal Mechanics 101, episode 24, written by Keith Sweet II and directed by Ben Ebon. Aboard Voyager, Rok-Tahk catches up with Murph, who is doing something unsupervised. Hold that thought, because Janeway summons Rok-Tahk to the bridge. The wormhole is destabilizing, and tachyon readings suggest an alteration to the timeline. But if that's true, how is Voyager still there? Janeway muses that perhaps the Infinity's temporal shielding is also keeping Voyager shielded for now. They still don't have many options, but Rok suggests a way for a probe to withstand the wormhole's gravimetric effects just enough to send a message to the Infinity. It's worth a shot. On Solemn, 52 years in the future, the Diviner watches as the Protostar enters the wormhole. With the ship gone, he and the other Vanakat have a new priority, finding the escaped prisoners. Jankum is hard at work on repairs on the Infinity, but the ship is nowhere close to ready. Jankum politely requests more time. Majel reminds Dal that time is not something they have. It's part of what got them into this mess, and Dal acknowledges, agreeing that they have to fix it. Just then, Admiral Janeway's voice comes through the comm system. Majel gives the Admiral a very straightforward update on what's happening on their side of the wormhole, and Tysus does the same, informing the Infinity crew that their actions might have created a temporal paradox. Dal asks if Gwyn is okay, but the message breaks up before he can get an answer. Then, the whole console starts malfunctioning until the display sends a message, "Save Gwyn." A set of coordinates follows, and although the crew doesn't know who is sending the message, Dal decides to follow the instructions. Cut to Gwyn, who is phasing in and out of existence. She, too, receives a message from an unknown being. "Stay present. This isn't your time. You need to be together." Iltheron then catches up with Gwyn, and she apologizes for failing him and Solemn. He's just happy to see that she's still alive. He cannot get her out of this place, but he won't leave her either. Cut back to Dal, Zero, and Majel, who are headed to the coordinates given by the mysterious entity. Majel expresses concern that this could be a Vanakat trap, but Dal counters by saying that doing the right thing sometimes comes with risk. As illogical as his view seems to her, Majel concludes that leaving Dal alone on the mission would be even more illogical, so she will stay with Dal and Zero instead of returning to the ship. However, as they approach the coordinates, they see that it's a long way to the bottom. Is anyone afraid of heights? 'Cause hang on to Zero, they're going down. At the bottom of the cavern, they spot Gwyn phasing in and out of time. She's struggling and in pain. She hears Dal and Zero, only to phase back into the present and sees her father, who wonders who she's talking to. He would like to meet these friends of hers, and Gwyn informs him that he did, only it was a different time and a different him. When he asks, Gwyn reveals that he might have been considered a monster to some, and he wasn't much of a father to her. This Iltheron, however, is not that guy. He's putting Gwyn first. Cut to the crew, back on the Infinity, where they are essentially building a time machine. They will use residual energy from the wormhole to go back in time and rescue Gwyn. And Dal has good news for Jankum, who's stressed about the number of repairs he must complete before the ship can fly. It doesn't have to fly for this plan to work. Voyager reestablishes its connection to the Infinity, and Dal informs Janeway of their plan to save Gwyn. When Janeway asks if there's anything they can do, Dal requests a copy of Temporal Mechanics 101. He's got some studying to do. All of that said, the crew still must save Gwyn, and Vanakat guards are hot on their trail. There's no time to waste any time. The Infinity starts collecting residual energy from the wormhole, but when it's time to go fast, well, they don't. Jankum doesn't understand what went wrong. Jankum did everything by the manual. But before Jankum descends into an existential crisis, a little bit of percussive maintenance does the trick, and the Infinity travels back in time. The crew is thrilled to see Gwyn, but the Diviner, not so much. Not until Gwyn explains that this guy is on their side. He's mesmerized by finally seeing life from other worlds with his own eyes. He asks what is wrong with Gwyn, and it is Dal who explains that they alter time, and now she's caught between quantum realities. She both exists and does not exist. You can read all about it in Temporal Mechanics 101. Zero gives Gwyn a hypospray that will stabilize Gwyn enough to move her, but it won't last long. They need to get her to Voyager, but how? The Infinity circuits are all fried from time travel, and Jankum is all out of miracles. But wait, what's this? Is there mysterious contact delivering another gift of a repaired ship? It's highly illogical, but that does not matter right now. Gwyn thanks Iltheron for staying with her and promises she will be back so he can write his own future. He asks that the crew take good care of her and sends them on their way. Meanwhile, Essentia is making a case to the Elders for militarization on Solum to protect their world from enemies above. That's when they see the Infinity leaving Solum, reinforcing her point. On the way home, Dal comforts Gwyn over her remorse that she didn't save her world. There's still time, he says. And Majel compliments Zero on being the most logical member of this group of misfits. If Zero could blush, they would. Now back on Voyager, the EMH has given Gwyn a temporal stabilizer. It's not a permanent solution, but it will do for now. Thinking about all they just went through, they wonder who the mysterious entity that's been helping them. And hey, where's Murph? Turns out he is talking to a mysterious entity, and now that they have brought the kids back together, they have to go and wish them good luck. The end.
Oh. Again, a lot. There's so much going on in this.
We're going to say it every week. These things are action-packed. They don't waste a second. So we've got all sorts of observations, just more profound and not so profound. So I'd like to start with just a little thing, because we haven't talked about Rock Talk very much this season, but she gets to assist in doing some science on the bridge in this episode, and I'm so happy for her. She's in her element.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we got this temporary substitution. I mean, I'm sure that, seeing that Majel is kind of now a part of the crew in a way, we're going to have more of that. But she's been mostly the source of all the various explanations and expositions, or just, bluntly saying what's going on in the scene. Before we had Rock doing this. So it's I'm glad that we have both of them basically doing the same this particular episode, and hopefully going forward as well. She's just such a lovable nerd. I love Rock.
Yeah. How can you not love Rock?
Yeah.
She's such a sweetheart.
That mysterious entity that we have, it's, Murph communicating with it, obviously.
Apparently.
It made me think, we only see the outline. It kind of makes me think of the future guy from the Enterprise. Although
the series Enterprise.
Yeah, much more colorful and much more bright, but nevertheless, you just have this outline of a person, supposedly. So what is it? Is it somebody stuck in time? Is it somebody traveling in time? Somebody looking for help? Somebody willing to offer help? How? Why? And why on earth they reach out to Merv of all people, possibly? I mean, nobody can understand Merv. So that's
why.
It's speaking of deepening mysteries, here we have these things. How does this entity ties in with all the other mysterious things happening so far? Beneficial, there they are. Nevertheless, what is it?
Question for you. Did you have, at this point in watching this season, have any working theories as to who it was?
Mostly sort of going on a negative. So like things that it's not, or they're not. I don't think it's Q. For example, I don't think it's Q. Out of Star Trek universe, so to speak, from production standpoint, we kind of just had Q featured pretty heavily in Picard. So I wouldn't think that they would bring Q heavily again. Simply within the universe, it's very much out of character for Q to be pulling this sort of tricks. Q would be all over this. I'm the one who did this. So that, I don't think it's Q. It is obviously something time related, time travel related, I should say. So But so far we have all these things. Like, are they all connected? That anomaly that was talking to Janeway, there's somebody that made the ship go, the Infinity work. Is it all the same thing? We don't know.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a mystery with a very big question mark.
Indeed. At this point, I thought it might be a little too obvious if it's Chakotay, but he seemed like the best, most logical choice. And, well, we'll see. That was my working theory for a while, was that it was going to be him and that he's trying to pull strings from wherever he was.
Yeah, it kind of fits into the whole thing where, could it be someone stuck in time? Which it is Chakotay then.
Exactly.
But, yeah, well, we shall see.
Indeed. So you mentioned the Diviner and Iltheron, the massive contrast between these two versions of the same man. Seeing the Diviner ever so briefly in this episode reminds me of just how different they are, and what a nice thing it's been to get to know Iltheron just a little better, because this is a much more likable guy, and that he didn't start out as a bad guy. Something just really changed him over the course of between who he is as we're seeing him right now in the second season, and then when we meet him in the very first episode of the first season as the Diviner. What a transformation, and how horrible.
Yeah, it is. And it kind of ties into the whole kind of thing that the actions have consequences. In this case, is the fact that he's taking this path that basically he made himself into a monster. And through the actions that I've been taking through, probably same deal, militarizing and, launching all those ships and going to the past and basically becoming this dreadful person. So yeah, it's almost, I've read a couple of reviews where, some of the reviewers are kind of like, they cannot reconcile that we have these two such completely opposite entities while being the same person, essentially.
Interesting. I've not had a problem with that, because the monster, at least in this version of the timeline so far, seems to be Essentia.
Yeah. Yeah.
She's taken on that role, and that, I guess, maybe leaves space for Iltheron to be a better person in this future that he can create, potentially. And I'm all for that.
Yeah, which kind of also brings in the questions that we know that there is also a younger version of Essentia out there. So how does that dichotomy is going to play out?
Right.
Something to be seen. Yeah.
Yeah, good question.
Here's something that, during the recap came up. Timeline has been altered. I mean, we've seen tachyons and chronotons going off the scale. Obviously, things has happened. We're in the middle of a timeline paradox. But how come Voyager A and the crew is still there? I mean, Infinity is out there in the future. They kind of, I suppose, protected. They're the one, they're the cause, the source of the paradox. Why is the Voyager A still experiencing the quantum reality? And that's when Janeway suggests the temporal shielding on board Infinity, because it's protecting what's going on with that reality. They kind of tied into it and they're protected. It made me think of Voyager's Year of Hell episode, where a sort of similar thing happens. Voyager is generating a protective temporal shield, and that's interfering with the episode's bad guy, Anoraks, making calculations and doing temporal incursions, changing the time, changing the fabric of time-space basically all throughout the galaxy. And Voyager's just stuck there with its temporal shield, and that's what prevents incursions from affecting them. Kind of same thing happening here. And I love that we have this parallel, and I love the fact that Janeway kind of brings it up. Like, it's probably what's happening because she's had personal experience with something similar.
Nice tie-in.
Yeah. I love the fact that we have all these continuing connections to the previous productions, all sprinkled all throughout Prodigy. It's just tremendous.
So many of them too. And what's so great is if you've not seen any other Star Trek, it's okay, because you're going to understand this story anyway. But it is a nice bonus for those who have seen other Star Trek, just like, oh, hey, look at what they did. Look at what they did. And they're giving us so many little treats. It's so delicious. And speaking of like little teeny kind of tie-ins, here's a really subtle one. You know how on Voyager, when things got really chaotic, Janeway's hair would just slowly become more and more disheveled? Like, that was the condition of how things were at that time. If it was really messed up, things were bad. And I couldn't even help but notice in this episode, Jankum's hair Stays in its new style where it's all nice and tamped down, right up to the point where Jankum performs the percussive maintenance on the time machine. And then, bam, back up it goes.
Yeah, I
Where
love it.
Jankum's going through a lot.
That's perfect. And it also kind of represents the fact that Jankum has been doing his best to kind of like be the polite, like, can I have some more time? Jankum is, you know. Yeah, and it's sort of like him reaching the point of this absolute stress when nothing is working, even though he did everything according to the manual. All of us, it kind of brings him back to his, Tellarite, not basically.
His true self, let's be honest.
His true self, exactly. And yeah, things go back up and they stay up. Generally speaking, I mean, we all know that Jankum is sort of partly comic relief in many ways. I mean, last episode, the old bird puns, I mean, that was just out of this world. I do like that he gets all these little throwaway witty lines. So it's like, how are things going? Warp is warping. I just
It was a great line.
Sticker and put it like on my car or something. Warp is warping.
That was a really great line.
Yeah. Something that I noticed, which I thought was a very lovely touch, and I may be reading a bit too much into it. We had a hologram Janeway being such a huge part of season 1, and goes without saying, she was meant to be a mentor and a sort of a mother figure to all, this bunch of lost kids. And they just addressed her as just Janeway, because, I mean, it wasn't the actual real Janeway who you would say, Captain Janeway or Admiral Janeway. So She was just Janeway. Did you notice that Dal, when things just starting to go awry and they're trying to figure out how to fix the situation that we find ourselves in this episode, he stops correcting himself when he's addressing the Admiral, and he just starts telling her Janeway, Janeway. And I feel like there is this transference where, yes, hologram Janeway was a big part. I mean, she did mentor them, got them to this point. Now, this sort of the mentorship role most certainly very firmly landed on the actual Janeway, who finds herself sort of in this position of taking, junior officers under her wing, not unlike she did with, like, say, B'Elanna or Tom on Voyager. And she never corrects him, incidentally. Like, she's talking to him, she doesn't interrupt. And as a matter of fact, none of the crew around her, like Tysus, seemed to be such a Starfleet officer, everything by the rules. He never says anything either when he's part of the conversation, and Dal just says Janeway. So I thought that was a very nice touch. It kind of makes it so much more personal in a way. So
I'm so glad you noticed this. Because I didn't, and yet it is like such a beautiful little touch. It is like a tip of the hat to hologram Janeway, who was there from the very beginning. And so there is some transference there, isn't there? There's gotta be. That's gotta be it. Oh my gosh, that is so cool. Let's see. I have another Voyager tie-in. Gwyn took the diplomatic ship Sacagawea to Solemn. Original Voyager had a shuttlecraft Sacagawea.
That's right.
I recall it most being featured in the episode Coda, but I think there might have been a couple more episodes there. Just we get the craft's name, and I thought, oh, well, isn't that an interesting just another little teeny thing? That's all.
Yeah. Something that I actually mentioned what we were talking about earlier, the fact that we have fairly complicated concepts, and it is. I mean, we're talking about time travel in general. Yes, we have a wonderful primer from Dr. Erin. Nevertheless, I mean, this is some pretty complicated stuff. There's a mention of Schrodinger's box paradox.
Yes.
The fact that, the kids actually work out how to solve the situation by the fact that we're in the right place. The place is actually there. It's stuck with, so Gwyn is existing in the same place as they are, but at different times. It's pretty hard to kind of wrap your mind around it. And, it's hard enough for adults, let alone kids. Nevertheless, it's interesting that, science on that level gets introduced in a cartoon.
Hey, thank goodness for Dr. Erin. That's all I have to say. But also a shout out to my bro and former co-host of this show, Norman Lau, who absolutely loves Schrodinger's cat. And I could not help but think of him when Majel said that line. I'm just like, Norm is going to love that. So shout out to you, buddy. I know you appreciated it.
We also have continuing throwbacks to, things that already happened in other, or were mentioned in other Star Trek productions, specifically phase discriminators, something the Doctor uses to come up with the time stabilizer for Gwyn. It's perfect because it's a very you will recognize it if you watched TNG, DS9, Voyager,
Mm-hmm.
Enterprise. It's amazing. It's like it's this thing that's part of the sort of like not on the same level perhaps as a replicator or a transporter, but part of the fabric of the universe. And it's like, of course the Doctor would use this. How else would you, affect time? You need a phase
Right.
here.
It's part of that terminology.
Yeah. And then in that, the Dr. Erin Temporal Mechanics introduction, I love the fact that they use the graphics. Again, kind of giving us throwbacks to when time travel actually happened in the original series or TNG. So we have reference to Q. We have reference to HMS Bounty. So that's the Klingon bird of prey. We have the sling around sling around the sun. And they're using the original USS Enterprise sort of moving across the screen. It's lovely. Again, as you said, you don't have to know necessarily what these things mean. They fit with, they provide a wonderful graphic. But, if you stick around with the fandom, you start, checking out previous iterations, all of a sudden it's like, oh my goodness, there is actually so much context to everything that's going on the screen.
And speaking of subtle mentions, Majel mentions a mission log, that references an episode of Next Generation Parallels where Worf does what they do to time travel. Another great little tie-in. You don't have to know the episode to just understand that was a thing.
We have another entry with I'm a doctor, not something, with the doctor saying I'm a doctor, not an exorcist, when they're trying to explain what's going on with Gwyn. It's like, you have
How
to
many
get
does that make now?
I think somebody counted. I mean, we got to be in hundreds right now. I mean, between all the various I'm a doctor, not
this season.
Well, 2, I think. Specifically for Image, I think 2, yeah.
Okay, I thought we were at 2 or 3. All right. Just checking in on that. The intelligent line that Majel, this is the Majel I was waiting for. When she questions the intelligent part of Iltheron's wonder at meeting intelligent life in this episode, I'm like, okay, now the Vulcan sarcasm is coming out, and you've won me over, lady. This was it. This was it. She's just...
I mean, let's face it. I mean, there's nothing like Vulcan sarcasm. It's like on a whole other level. I love it.
We need it. We absolutely need it. And apparently, okay, one more reference. There's so many in this episode. Is Dal a Captain Pike fan? Because he does say hit it when they initiate the time machine, but he does come back later with his signature line, go fast. And I'm just wondering, what else did he read besides Temporal Mechanics? Is he getting into some history now by chance?
Hopefully. I mean, he certainly had that huge pile of pads, so who knows?
Hope he's making his way through. It's a lot to take in.
Yeah.
One very tiny thing, like Essentia's not in this episode very much. And this is something I wanted to carry over because I didn't get it in last episode. The way that she is installing fear among the Vandakat taps into everybody's natural fear of the unknown. Yeah. And how do we counter that? It's by learning and understanding what we don't know. And that is how we understand more and fear less. She's trying to do the opposite. The kids are doing the understanding part. And nice little contrast there. I love that. And then, okay, one last question before we wrap up this segment. Do you ship Zero and Majel? Because there was a little bit of flirtiness going on.
Again, it's a Vulcan one, but yeah, I agree. I mean, Zero probably would be like, oh goodness, I mean, is she hitting on me? What's going on here? But yeah, it was lovely. Like them sciencing together and then her complimenting her, like, you're the most logical member of this group. It's like high praise from a Vulcan.
Absolutely.
So yeah, something's going on there.
I think so.
In the tradition of Mission Log, we dedicate a great deal of time to discuss some of the finer points from the episodes we review to see what types of morals, meanings, and messages we can discover. So, Shar, what did you find meaningful or memorable in this episode?
Well, I think the biggest thing that stood out to me throughout this whole episode is the way that both Janeway and Dal, our leaders, keep cool under pressure. They're both having to triage parts of this crisis throughout. Janeway is dealing with Chakotay later because that's not a top priority at the moment. Dal is staying focused so that he can find Gwyn. And that is a really nice display of just coolness under pressure, grace under pressure, if you will. Dal could have wallowed in guilt because he screwed things up, but he didn't. Janeway could have been angry at Dal for screwing things up, and she wasn't. Both focus on the problem, and they don't give up. That's how many times have we mentioned that already in this season so far, 4 episodes in? Big theme. And Gwyn could have also felt down in the dumps because she didn't complete her mission yet. But Dal does a great job of reassuring her and being a comforting presence, saying, look, I understand you're processing this, but you're not done yet. There's still time. And here we are.
Yeah.
How about you?
I love how Dal, as you said, he's keeping cool under pressure, concentrating on finding a solution to the problem. I mean, it's like, yes, he's the one who kind of causes the problem, but at the same time, he's like, sorry. And he is sorry, but nevertheless, he's certainly, learned this whole idea about actions having consequences. He's learning it the hard way, and he is trying to resolve it.
Yeah, he's doing his best, but lest we forget, he is a young kid.
His recklessness set off a time paradox. Yeah. I mean, he's sorry they lost Chakotay again. I mean, he actually apologizes to Janeway, and yeah, again, it kind of has this very like, I'm sorry, Mom vibes.
Big time.
He's crushed to learn that Gwyn may be lost now because she's both there and not there.
Yeah.
But, he's willing to, keep going and try and fix it. And as a sort of a consequence to that, at some point he I don't know, consciously or subconsciously, he realizes that he needs to learn more. That's what I also really liked in this case, this whole thing where everybody's like, didn't you read Temporal Mechanics 101? He's like, no, I did not read. What's up with all the nerd speak? Explain it. Yes, it's great to solve everything, when everybody brings something as a group, but at the same time, he needs to know enough also himself in order to make, good decisions, if you will. So the fact that he's like, yes, humbly asking Janeway, like, can you please send me Temporal Mechanics? He realizes that he has to learn. He can't just fly by the seat of his pants. So it's that part was, really nice to see that, he's willing to learn. And by the end of the episode, he's, speaking the nerd speak. He's the one explaining what's going on.
He's spitting it right back, and it's just been absorbed in his head. And good for him. He really is
learning,
making changes in real time. I love how Dal and Majel are basically on opposite ends of what a really good Starfleet officer is and a well-rounded one. He says sometimes doing the right thing means taking risks because he understands risk. He's been through a lot of things already, and he's not afraid to put himself on the line for another or to complete a mission or whatever. He's very rough and tumble, almost like a Captain Kirk type. And his actions might seem reckless, but sometimes they work. To contrast that with Majel, who is coming from the place of Starfleet discipline and procedure and volcanism, molded from experiences of all the officers that came before, doing as you are told, learning from their lessons. And there's a reason why Starfleet has things set a certain way. And it's from all of that collective experience. And Majel is much more, I would say like a Picard, if we're making comparisons, rooted in logical course and trying to be diplomatic in stressful situations. Her train of thought, because she's a Vulcan and young and inexperienced, it's probably a little too rigid, but together they're using both of their strengths to try and work things out. So it's cool to see that.
Yeah. And it's interesting that you mentioned both, Kirk's, risk is our business versus Picard's diplomacy. And it's fun that, the person that's mentoring this whole crew is Janeway, that, because she's very much sort of in between Kirk and between Picard. So, in terms of her commanding style. So it's a lovely thing to kind of, everything rots nicely in the
circle, baby.
Yeah.
It's true. It's true. One big thing that I think is a great theme throughout this episode is that honesty is the best policy. Yeah. I cannot agree more with this personally, but I love, especially with Gwyn talking with Iltheron, how she doesn't sugarcoat the truth when she tells him about what he was like as the diviner and how he treated people as that person, both to her and as to others. And I like his response too. Basically, I'm not that guy. I'm not going to be like that guy. I don't know who that guy is. Thank goodness he doesn't.
Yeah, I find it amazing that it's in his nature to be that nurturing, apparently, because
Yeah.
figure he just met her. He only found out that that's his daughter, not progeny. It's daughter. Only very short periods of time prior, and yet he was like, "Yeah, I'm not leaving you." I mean, he was ready to go and like get her out of that hole and help her every which way, and he stayed with her. So that is wonderful. So yeah, this whole dichotomy is, I find it fascinating that we have the same character that's such a completely 180-degree uh person. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's like there's no word for it, but this father versus monster.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
beautiful.
lest we
Yeah,
forget, I mean, when the kids show up and there he is, they're like, oh no, the diviner, because that's who they know him to
yeah,
be. And then that cools off so quick, though,
yeah.
when they realize one,
Like
Gwyn
they don't.
says,
Yeah, they never question Gwyn, which is like kind of like, yeah, isn't that wonderful that they've developed such a wonderful trust between themselves? That it's like
yes.
she's like, he's fine. It's like, okay,
But also, I think his whole demeanor is different, and you can just see
yeah,
that and feel that difference in energy and presence. And
yeah.
so immediately they're at ease, like, oh, okay, this is
And
different.
of course, the continuation of him being just a lowly astronomer, kind of being completely gaga over the fact that he's meeting actual aliens, and it's so exciting. And he probably wishes, I mean, he had an opportunity to talk to them more and get to know them. But in this case, like it's his daughter that's now in trouble, and go save her, take care of her.
Yeah,
It's a wonderful scene.
it is. It's really nice. It's short, but it
Hmm.
says so
Very
much.
powerful. Yeah.
Yeah.
So with Rock being back, she kind of puts a very nice sort of little bow on the whole, working together. I love the fact that she said a very simple sentence. We will figure this out when we meet together.
Yeah. It's so charming.
So it's they're planning to travel back in time. So our group is going to be back together. This whole theme of togetherness and figuring things out, put our heads together and solve this problem and solve this mystery. Because again, like whatever's going on with that, entity, there's far too many questions at this
Right now,
point. How
yeah.
are they, yeah, somehow they're gonna work through all of them and find out how to save Chakotay, how to save Gwyn. It's at this point, it's like, well, who else is gonna get in trouble? We're gonna have like a whole slew of people that we need to save and help during the season. Yeah.
I mean, it's a lot. It would be, I would think, super overwhelming to be dealing with all of this at
Hmm.
once. And that is their approach is it's okay. One step at a time. We will work through this together.
Yeah, and what's more, kind of throws back to what you were saying, being cool under pressure. They're concentrating on a problem at a time, which kind of makes me think of Andy Weir's The Martian, where,
Oh,
you have the
yeah.
astronaut who's stuck on Mars. That's his approach. It's like, okay, that's the problem right now, du jour, something that's happening right now. I need to solve it. I'm going to go to the next step, and I'm going to go to the next step. So it's kind of, I think they're working sort of through the same thing. They're not being very, even though their kids are not really trained Starfleet officers yet. Nevertheless, they kind of have that same thing. Like, okay, now the problem is saving Gwyn before we save Chakotay. So here we
Yeah.
are.
I mean, the problem solving skills they have are so top notch. They've
Mhm.
got that down already to an
Yeah.
enviable degree. I mean, I have to remind myself to do that in my job when I'm coding because that is exactly what you do. You can't think of any big problem. You break it down into littler
Just
problems
small
that ultimately
chunks.
solve
Mhm.
the big problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah, but it's still a lot.
It is. Well, let's wrap up.
Let's do that.
We have overall, I think we kind of like starting to get this pretty nice development in foreshadowing. Because like before we
Mm.
had, there's this thing happening here, there's a problem developing there. Um, who is this mysterious entity? As I mentioned before, is it all connected? Is it all different strange powers that are having their own agendas that, somebody's helpful and somebody perhaps is not? So yeah, let's see what's going to happen. I mean, who is it that Murph is communicating with? That's I think a huge
Right?
question at the moment.
Why is
And
Murph
yeah,
unsupervised?
I know, right? It's like how is that entity even understanding him? Like all this little beep boop. I don't know. That's like a whole other question.
So many questions.
Now, the whole Temporal Mechanics 101 class, I mean, not the whole, just the bits that we actually Dell allowed us to see, has wonderful vibes of actual Dr. Erin's Astronomy 101 series of videos that she did on YouTube. So for those who want
Yes.
some wonderful astronomy, just general science, explanations relating to astronomy, check it out on her YouTube channel. It's lovely,
Yeah.
which kind of brings me to, I almost wish we had like that whole thing done Prodigy style. It would have been fantastic. Like a nice little offshoot project, Dr. Erin does astronomy or something.
Oh, it's not too late. This can still happen.
I don't know, here's an idea to the producers. It's not too late.
Right? Honestly, I would love to see a whole series of Dr. Erin explaining anything at all because it's so beautifully done. It's fun to watch. She's a great narrator and knows how to break it down so that anybody can understand it. This is good stuff.
Yeah, you always learn something new.
Yeah, much in the way that this was a primer for understanding time travel and temporal mechanics. Like I feel like this is just a backdoor pilot for a web series.
Perfect. Yes.
So somebody out there who has the resources and the connections to make that happen, please make that happen. Well, I think, let's see, for my final thoughts, I mean, this was a great installment of this season. It answers some questions, but it asks like at least as many, if not more, and new ones. So many more, probably. Once again, we're treated to a great example of how to work through a problem and multiple problems at that. And with so much going on, it could be overwhelming, but it's really not. And I think it's because of our kids and the storytelling that just help us, okay, nope, we need to focus on this right now. This is our top priority. Here's what we're going to do. That's a huge credit to everybody, writers, directors, animators of the show, but also, of course, Dr. Erin for making temporal mechanics fun and getting the scientific jargon not dumbed down, but simplified so that anybody can understand something as complex as a time paradox. Well, we've reached the end of our show, so thank you everybody for joining us here on Mission Log Prodigy. If you've enjoyed our show, please make sure you like and share and subscribe to our Mission Log Prodigy playlist on the Roddenberry Entertainment YouTube channel, or find us on the podcast catcher of your choice. Mission Log Prodigy is produced by Roddenberry Entertainment. Production and technical direction by Earl Green. Thank you, sir. Our website and your opportunity to comment and connect with us is at missionlogpodcast.com. And if you would like to support Mission Log directly, you can do so at patreon.com/missionlog.
Thank you everyone for joining us today. Next week, we will take a look at Observer's Paradox. Don't forget to watch that episode and send us your thoughts no later than Saturday, July 27th. You can do so at missionlog-prodigy@roddenberry.com. We can't wait to hear what you have to say about that, but right now, let's hear what you have to say about Temporal Mechanics 101.
Receiving listener communications. Message playback begins.
Okay, what's your name and age?
My name is Rook and my age is 9.
Rook, did you like the episode this week?
Yes, I did.
What was your favorite part of the episode?
My favorite part was when the ship fixed itself.
Oh yeah? When Jenkins was complaining and it all of a sudden turned on?
Yeah.
Yeah. And what did you learn from the episode?
I learned from the episode that you should do what you're supposed to do. And that means that when Dow didn't read Temporal Mechanics 101, he could have gotten in less trouble.
Probably, yeah. But by the end, he read the thing and figured out how that works.
Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Erin, right?
Yes.
All right.
This is a Roddenberry podcast. For more great podcasts, visit podcast.roddenberry.com.